Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz on Think About It Thursday. Ugh, how ironic that this is the name of Thursday's segment because there's a whole lot to think about. Grab you a snack, grab a beverage. This one is going to be a long one. There's a lot of information that I need to give to you because there's stuff going on flipping coast to coast. So let's start with the breaking news. What you hear in the background, because the expulsion votes did not start until this afternoon, and the last one was just tallied right before I came on the air. Just in case there's any more breaking news, and there's some other stories that might have some breaking news, like the other night with the whole Wisconsin thing. You may hear that in the background. But as far as Tennessee, let's just jump right on into it. I'll see you in 2 and 2. You know how we do.
Fuck you, fascists! Fuck you, fascists! Fuck you, fascists!
We are voting on House Resolution 64. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Has everybody voted? Does anybody wish to change their vote? Mr. Clark, take the vote.
Aye 65, 30 nays.
House Resolution 64 fails.
I will answer your question. It might have to do with the color of our skin.
Just because you don't get your way, you can't come to the well, bring your friends, and throw a temper tantrum with an adolescent bullhorn. It doesn't give you the right to enrage folks that are here to watch this body conduct business and talk about things you know good and well that we've worked very hard to protect our children here in the state of Tennessee. Very hard. You know what? And what you could.
They worked very hard to protect the children. That's why they just attempted to expel 3 people who were standing on the front lines with the children who walked out of school to prove that they wanted to be protected. That there were other members of the House on the House floor asking children what gun they would prefer to be shot with. But I digress. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what took place today and what could take place moving forward. Because let's start with the votes and who was expelled and who was not. So out of the Tennessee 3, as they have been dubbed, Representative Jones was expelled. Representative Johnson, the white woman that you saw in the video who said that it may have something to do with the color of their skin, I'm inclined to believe her. She was not expelled. And Representative Pearson, who gave a word before his vote, was expelled. His was the final vote before me coming live on here. Now, Representative Johnson stated that she may not have been expelled due to the color of her skin. Representative Jones has not confirmed if he will be running in the special election as of yet, but has confirmed that he will continue to protest. Pearson unequivocally said, "We'll be back." The House took the morning to take care of business as usual. Want to know what that business as usual was? School safety. And I'm using quotation because it was. So they increased the amount of armed resource officers at schools, talked about instilling panic buttons. They wanted to have 2 different entry points at every school that would be locked so nobody could walk right inside. Now, remember, the last school shooting took place in Nashville, Tennessee. The doors were locked. The shooter shot through the doors. And I already explained to y'all, if you watched me for a while, why I don't like glass doors. I said this before with the Paul Pelosi attack. This is why I don't like glass doors. Do what you like. Do what you like. But each of them spoke on their behalf prior to the vote. But here's some stuff that I want to bring up to you all. The House Speaker must call for a special election within the next 90 days. The 2 expelled members can run in that special election. If you haven't been able to tell, whether you've been watching this podcast or not, they have the people behind them. They were already voted in once. They have now been elevated to civil rights 2.0, or as I like to say, continuation, because I hate when they say the civil rights era, it never ended. Level activist. They got the people. So this was pomp and circumstance. And the last video of the gentleman with all those microaggressions, talking to Representative Pearson like he was a child.
If we can't protect our children, we don't have a democracy. Our democracy is.
That's not what we're going to do. Yes, the original night, there was a representative, a white representative, that pushed and snatched the phone of Representative Jones. Now, I've given a lot of information this week, so I'm trying not to double back. If you want any further information, because the Tennessee House and Tennessee Senate has been riddled with actual factual scandals. Like there was a whole FBI investigation into them in 2022. You can go back to last night's episode and watch that when you're done with this, or pause this and go back and watch it and then come back here. But this week has been chock full of information. That's why the episodes have run a little bit longer than the hour I try to keep it to, but it's better to go over and give you the information than shortchange you. But child, that ain't all that's going on. And before we get into all the other individual stuff, let's take a look at the puppeteers behind the scenes, and some of them not so much behind the scenes. So you have a better understanding of what is going on right now and why it's going on. Here we go.
These are the top 20 leaders shaping Christian nationalism and related movements. Let's dive in. Number 1 is David Barton. Historian David Barton promotes America's Christian heritage through books and speeches. Number 2 is Lance Wallnau. He champions the Seven Mountains Mandate, urging Christians to impact society's sectors. Number 3 is C. Peter Wagner. He was a founder of the New Apostolic Reformation and emphasized modern-day apostles and prophets. Number 4 is Bethel Church's Bill Johnson. He's a key figure in the New Apostolic Reformation and influences many believers. Number 5 is televangelist Paula White, who is the former MAGA president's spiritual advisor, and she's a vocal advocate for Christian nationalism. Number 6, Jerry Falwell Jr. So he was Liberty University's ex-president, and he pushed for Christian values in politics and education. Number 7 is Franklin Graham, who is Billy Graham's son. He supports Christian nationalism and mobilizes evangelicals politically. Number 8 is James Dobson, the founder of Focus on the Family. He has shaped the political landscape with conservative Christian values. Number 9 is Cindy Jacobs. She's a New Apostolic Reformation prophet, and she rallies Christians for prayer and political action. Number 10 is Lou Engle. He's the founder of The Call and promotes Christian values in politics and society through prayer and fasting. Number 11 is Pat Robertson. He's a televangelist that founded the Christian Broadcasting Network and has been a prominent Christian conservative voice. Number 12 is Tony Perkins. Tony Perkins is the president of the Family Research Council and actively lobbies and promotes Christian values in American politics. Number 13 is Ralph Reed. He was the founder of the Faith and Freedom Coalition and has been a key player in mobilizing Christian voices. Number 14 is Mike Bickle. He is the International House of Prayer founder and is an influential figure in the charismatic Christian movement. Number 15, Jim Baker. He was once a famous televangelist, and now he uses his platform to advocate for Christian nationalism and conservative values. Number 16 is Robert Jeffress. He's an influential Christian nationalist who advised the former MAGA president on faith-related matters. Number 17, Rodney Howard Brown. He's a charismatic pastor and has been very influential in promoting Christian nationalism and conservative policies. Number 18 is D. James Kennedy. He is the late founder of Coral Ridge Ministries, and he was an influential Christian conservative leader. Number 19 is Jack Hibbs. He's the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and he advocates for Christian conservative values and engages with political issues. Number 20 is Dutch Sheets. He's a New Apostolic Reformation leader, and he's known for the intercessory prayer movement and advocacy for Christian values in politics. So those are 20 of the significant leaders in the Christian nationalism, New Apostolic Reformation, and Seven Mountains Mandate movements. And if you're intrigued, you can dig deeper and let me know what you think in the comments.
No disrespect to my Pentecostals, because apostolic falls underneath that umbrella, but this is why I generally say that apostolic churches give me cult vibes. And if you noticed, Christian nationalism seems to be the longest standing family business in the United States. But before we move on, there is one bit of information, sorry, I forgot to give you all, regarding what happened in Tennessee today. This expulsion, this is only the third time it has occurred in either the chambers, the House or the Senate, within, Tennessee, since the Civil War. 3 times since the Civil War.
I want to play a little bit of sound from
now, before I run this next one, as always, let me warn you, major trigger warning, major trigger warning. And yes, we are sticking with politics for now.
Early this morning, the Prince George's County Police Department's investigators arrested a College Park man for possession and distribution of child pornography. The suspect is 47-year-old Patrick Woyan. On February 17th, 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children notified the Prince George's County Police that a social media account operating in the county possessed and distributed suspected child pornography. The image and videos had been uploaded to the social media account in January of 2023. Through various investigative techniques, PGPD investigators discovered the social media account belonged to Mr. Patrick Woyan. On February 28, 2023, Prince George's County Police detectives served the search warrant at Woyan's College Park home. Investigators recovered multiple cell phones, a storage device, a tablet, and a computer. Following additional investigation, PGPD obtained criminal charges against Woyan, and investigators took him into custody early this morning. Woyan is charged with 40 counts of possession of child exploitative material and 16 counts of distribution of the same child exploitative material. He is in custody of the Prince George's County Department of Corrections. This remains an open and active investigation.
Yes. A mayor.
People were texting me.
A mayor.
Saying thank you for stepping up. My office couldn't stop receiving calls from all over the country, because it's not just people in the House, it's people across the country who are like, finally, no more thoughts and prayers. We need action. We need to see that someone is pissed off about this. And that's why we got that reaction. And so, you know, I love what he said about decorum.
But the drag queens. But the trans community.
Children are being slaughtered by assault rifles.
But wokeness.
Throughout American history, we have become better because of mass movements.
Like I said, sticking with politics. This time, Florida's fighting back. And not just Disney. You're going to enjoy this one. Cheers.
I love this. Florida Democrats are fighting against Ron DeSantis by giving him a taste of his own medicine. They're using DeSantis' fascist book ban law on DeSantis' new book, The Courage to Be Free. They found over 17 instances where DeSantis' new book likely violates Florida's oppressive law. And they've asked school districts to ban the book, citing its references to gender identity, wokeness, and other divisive concepts.
Yesterday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent a letter to the Chief Inspector General of the state of Florida demanding an investigation into how Disney outsmarted him and ended up usurping control of the Reedy Creek Charter District before DeSantis's hand-picked puppet board could take power. Literally the day before they took power, Disney finalized this move that basically sent the power back to them, until 21 years after the death of the last descendant of King Charles III. So, yeah, you probably got a good, I would say at least 100 years, depending on how many kids the kids and kids' have. So yeah, at least 100 years, possibly for the rest of eternity. And Ron DeSantis is furious that he got outsmarted by Goofy and Pluto, so he is demanding an investigation. Here's what DeSantis said in his letter. These collusive and self-dealing arrangements aim to nullify the recently passed legislation, undercut Florida's legislative process, and defy the will of Floridians. Now, before I continue reading, let me stop on that part. Defy the will of Floridians? Did Floridians vote to punish Disney? No. No, we didn't. That wasn't a referendum. That wasn't an amendment on our ballots this past November. I know, I voted here. I'm a Floridian. Honestly, I don't give a damn how that district is run. It doesn't affect me at all. Disney should not have that kind of power. The state was stupid to do that to begin with. But they wanted those tourism dollars, and Disney brought them in. Disney continues to bring them in to this day. So y'all really aren't going to do much of anything because you're too dependent upon Disney. But he continues. In addition, based on initial observations of counsel, the RCID board's actions appear to suffer from serious legal infirmities, including, among other things, inadequate notice, lack of consideration, improper delegation of authority, and ethical violations such as conflicts of interest and self-dealing. Inadequate notice. All right, let me talk about that for a second because that's the only one that actually has any kind of legal ramifications. Disney was required by law to make public notice, at least to the governor's office, to the state boards, that they were going to hold this vote and what they were voting on and what they were voting on would do. Disney did that. They let everybody know. Ron DeSantis was alerted that this was going to happen, but DeSantis didn't do anything about it because he was too busy, one, going on his book tour, which is not going well, and two, going on cable news, patting himself on the back saying, I took down Disney. And Disney's like, hey, we're going to vote on this that's going to make you look real dumb, but we're giving you notice. Here it is. Then they voted on it. You had the notice. I'm sure your little inspector general is going to do everything they can to make sure that you look like you're right and they're wrong. But at the end of the day, there is nothing illegal about what Disney did. They had their lawyers looking at this for months and months and months and months and months. They did everything right. You did everything wrong, and no amount of investigation from your inspector general is going to change that.
This cup of Ron DeSantis tears is delicious. So crisp and refreshing. To quote Muscles and Nursing, I love this for him. Gives me the warm and fuzzies inside. You know, there are some politicians that are getting to the find out part of all their fucking around. Now, this is still in the arena of politics, but we do need to segue to, you know what? I'll save this one for right before we get into all the Trump shenanigans, because there's some Trump family legal woes that we need to discuss also. But let's bounce on over to Oklahoma, because Oklahoma seems to have a problem with children with disabilities. Not sure what I'm talking about? Come on, you know me better than that.
We have more madness from the Republican Party, and this one is truly jaw-dropping. In the state of Oklahoma, a bill that would prohibit adults from hitting children with disabilities in school has failed because Republicans voted against it. So I guess according to some Republicans in Oklahoma, hitting disabled children in school is apparently okay now. Genuinely one of the most disgusting votes I've seen in politics, and I'm once again wondering, how does anybody still support the Republican Party?
Individualism. And there are far too many people that proclaim themselves to be conservatives that still believe in eugenics. They don't call it eugenics anymore. It's just anti-woke, anti-inclusion. They do not value anyone that they do not see as able-bodied and able-minded. If you do not fit into their very, very, very slim box of normality, they don't care. You're not human. If you're not white, pretending to be straight, pretending to be Christian, the top 1%, male, and in great health, they don't care. You're not human. You are no more than nothing but a cog in the machine for them to increase their profitability.
I gotta say, those children who died are their children too. As Republican, they were the children of the state.
Oh,
Represented by Republicans and Democrats.
you and I both. Now, first of all, I don't know what would drive anybody to want to hit a disabled child. No, I'm not excluding every other child. The conversation is about disabled children. Don't try to take this clip or come into the comments section saying that Ted's is okay with hit. No. I'm staying on topic. I don't know why you would want to hit a disabled child anyway. Well, we got a skirt right back down to Florida. Because even though Ron DeSantis has some things coming for him, looks like he's got a few other things coming from here. Possibly. Because this story has evolved overnight. Pay attention to the very end of the very last video. It's important. In full disclosure, I have to show you every bit of the story that has been put out to the public. Okay? So this is Rebecca Jones v. Ron DeSantis, and Rebecca Jones and her 13-year-old son. Here we go.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and whistleblower Rebecca Jones.
Just because you're a darling of some corners of the fever swamps.
I knew there was an investigation.
So, one, she's not a data scientist.
I knew there was an investigation.
She is not involved in collating any data. She does not have the expertise to do that.
I knew there was an investigation. You'd think that would be the end of it. Obviously, she's got issues. I knew there was an investigation.
She is not the chief architect of our web portal.
I knew there was an investigation. Sir, excuse me. No, excuse me. I'm not going to let you get away with it. I knew there was an investigation because her IP address was linked to the felony.
And stop trying to feed narratives.
So in the past, the governor has used the term raid to describe the execution of a search warrant, but this isn't about any word. It's about an investigation into a high-profile critic of the state's handling of this pandemic. And today we learned that the governor was, in fact, aware of the FDLE investigation.
I knew there was an investigation.
It's so much disturbing shit in one day. Y'all remember Rebecca Jones? She was known as the whistleblower during COVID, saying that Florida was lying about their dashboards. And then she ran against Matt Gaetz, and she didn't win. Obviously, she still speaks out vocally against DeSantis and like-minded politicians. They just took her kid away from her for the night. The state did. Because of a meme in a Snapchat. A non-threatening meme. I sense the end of this account coming pretty soon. I mean, he's looking to legislate that too, by the way. He wants to make it easier to sue people like me. Anyway, here are her tweets.
My family is not safe. My son has been taken on the governor's orders.
This may very well be out of the drawer of conspiracy theories. But didn't DeSantis just ask for $100 million to beef up his National Guard? What do you think that money is going to be used for? What do you think is going to happen when people have a permit to carry based on constitutional carry? What do you think is going to happen when those $100 million are being used for a brown shirt force that will come and collect your kids when you do something that opposes the Führer? We've seen all this before, and yes, the $100 million may not be used for exactly that purpose. That's why it's a conspiracy theory and a far-out thought, but it's not far-fetched, and therein lies the problem.
My family is not safe. My son has been taken on the governor's orders, and I've had to send my husband and daughter out of the state for their safety. This is the reality of living in DeSantis, Florida. There is no freedom here, only retaliatory rule by a fascist who wishes to be king. This was posted last night by Rebecca Jones. You may remember Rebecca from 2020. She's the person who came forward and claimed Governor Ron DeSantis told her to fudge the COVID numbers in Florida, both infections and deaths. She refused to do that, came out as a whistleblower. Shortly after, she had armed law enforcement officers raid her home. She claimed this happened at the behest of Ron DeSantis, that agents pointed firearms at her 2 young children. They were there, stating that she had sent some sort of message over an emergency service. She said she never did. While they reached a plea agreement, she did not admit that that had happened, still says that did not happen, and in fact, filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida. Well, in her thread last night, she says that a week after filing that lawsuit against the state, a kid claiming to be a cousin of one of her son's classmates joined their Snapchat group. They recorded their conversations and anonymously reported her son to police for sharing an internet meme. This meme. Remember when Uvalde happened? I shared stuff dangerously, ridiculously similar to this. A lot of people did. This is what her son posted that was then reported to police as if he might be a school shooter. But as a result of the tip, law enforcement and school officials had to complete a threat assessment. They looked over everything and determined that there was no wrongdoing. In fact, the kids weren't even actually talking about something like Uvalde. They were having a conversation about cops and video games, and that meme was one of many that was shared in that. So cleared, everything's good. Life went back to normal. And then 2 weeks later, bringing us to earlier yesterday, an officer told me the state issued a warrant for my son's arrest for digital threats of terrorism. I asked on whose orders. The officer said it was the state. They aren't letting him come home tonight. They kidnapped my son. They showed up and arrested her 13-year-old child for sharing this meme in a Snapchat group. And then her husband and daughter had to leave the state last night because Child Protective Services would automatically deem their home dangerous and would, quite frankly, take her daughter out of the home because her 13-year-old is charged with a felony for sharing a meme. And all of this happened less than a week after filing the first lawsuit in America against the state's COVID lies. Local police cleared him. His school cleared him. The state did not. Who is the state at the behest of, other than the governor? This is the guy that a bunch of Republicans want to see as the next president of the United States. I'm monitoring. If there's any way to help her, I will let you all know. But this is nothing short of terrifying.
Thursday night, and here's what happened. Earlier today, I duetted this creator who was talking about a situation in Florida involving Rebecca Jones, who is an enemy of Ron DeSantis. Her son had been arrested and removed from their home, and at the time she believed it was due to a Snapchat meme. Everything this creator posted at the time was the truth as we had it in that moment. What we now know is the sheriff's department in Florida had issued a warrant for her son's arrest related to some allegations that he said he was going to shoot up his school, he was depressed, he wanted to kill his bullies. This is a story where multiple things are true at once, and as you get more and more of the truth, the picture starts to change ever so slightly. I'm not even sure we're at the end of this story yet. As of 2 hours ago, she is still waiting for her 13-year-old son to be released. I will let you know when we have more. In the meanwhile, I've removed the duet because we have new information now, and we want to make sure that we're giving you the most up-to-date truth as we have it. Also, just now, 2 of the Tennessee 3 have been expelled from their seats in Congress. And it is lost on absolutely no one, Gloria Johnson included, that the 2 they expelled were the 2 black men who were in their first term. Expulsion arguments for each one of these politicians was held separately, and it was argued that because Gloria Johnson never touched the bullhorn, never banged on the table, never held a sign, she was somehow not as punishable as the other two. So what happens now is their districts will have to hold a special election to refill their seats at taxpayer expense. And they're allowed to run for those seats again, and they could get reseated. In the meantime, their district can assign a replacement, or they can allow the seat to remain vacant. ProPublica has an expose on Clarence Thomas that shows that over 20 years he accepted millions of dollars in gifts and vacations from Republican superdonor Harlan Crow. The big problem here is that Clarence Thomas never disclosed these gifts. Now, what we're going to find out next is just how much trouble he could even be in. Did he break a law, or did he just act unethically? Because there are financial disclosure rules for the Senate and Congress and the president, but those same rules don't exist for Supreme Court justices. The Supreme Court justice disclosure rules are kind of like on a if you want to basis. And there's been legislation pending forever that would make them have to disclose financial gifts like this. Will he be impeached? Will he be expelled? That's going to be difficult with a Republican Congress. So we'll have to wait to find out more about how this is going to turn out. And Joe Biden, in his ever attempt to be a centrist, has decided that you can't put a blanket ban on trans kids being able to play sports, but you can ban trans athletes from playing high-level competitive sports in high school or college. So basically, if you have a trans kid who wants to join like a soccer club, they should be allowed to do that. But if you are an elite athlete who had any dreams of going to the Olympics or getting a scholarship to play sports, you will not be allowed if you are trans. It was a hell of a news night, guys. I'm going to do banana shirt good news in the morning because I am truly just so exhausted today. And I know you guys are too. Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow.
Now, I'm not one for conspiracy theories, and if you've been here for a while, you know that I'm not. But isn't it funny that the cousin of a classmate cousin gets into this Snapchat, and now all of a sudden Rebecca Jones's son is under arrest? I have seen more egregious memes after school shootings than that. But we shall see. As always, we will wait to see if there's additional information. Once again, this is why I have different news stations going on in the background. Should anything come through breaking, I will bring it to you. Thus far, it's just more commentary that everyone is talking about coming out of Tennessee. And I understand everybody has their focuses. And yes, we're going to get to Clarence Thomas and everything. But we do have to get to Wisconsin. Now, if you remember, it was just this week, Tuesday, I believe, we're right at the close of the podcast. I told you the results of the Supreme Court election there. Well, now Wisconsin has decided winning is an impeachable offense before you're even seated. Take it away, Muscles.
Tennessee is an exact example of what authoritarianism looks like. But do you want to see one even worse? Other than obviously Ron DeSantis and Abbott, every red state. In Wisconsin, the Supreme Court just flipped liberal. April 5th, Janet won. She's now a Wisconsin Supreme Court judge. Republicans are already planning on impeaching her. She won by 11 points, and they're already planning on impeaching her. Dan Noddle, who was in a race, is a Republican, and he won his race due to gerrymandering. So now they are planning on impeaching the newly elected by 11 points Supreme Court Justice. She hasn't even sat on the bench or been sworn in, and they're planning on impeaching her. That is authoritarianism. That's what happens with gerrymandering. They do whatever the fuck they want because they have the courts in their favor with an illegitimate Supreme Court. They're literally already planning on impeaching her.
Now, if you recall last night, I told you that her opponent, Dan Kelly, who was previously on the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, but lost his election in 2020 and, of course, lost his election on Tuesday. Why he was such a sore loser. The GOP, coast to coast, knows that they don't have the votes. So what do? They start challenging the votes all the way up to the Supreme Court of their state, and then they try to take it to the SCOTUS. They need conservative heavy court systems. That's what they need. But here's something that the GOP keeps ignoring, even with this new narrative that they're putting out surrounding Trump. What's led to this indictment right now on Trump, the special master for the DOJ regarding January 6th and the Mar-a-Lago and everything else has been Trump appointed, other conservative GOP appointed judges, because not every judge is going to be corrupt. Every career field has bad employees, has bad people in it. We know that. That's human nature. That is the most common of common knowledge. But a judge at their core, especially those that fought their way up through the ranks, through law school, through being an attorney, whether for a law firm, for themselves, working for the district attorney, they're going to be impartial because they know what it's like to be on the other side. Some of them got into law because of a family member, a friend. Not everybody gets into careers for the almighty dollar. And every attorney is not rolling in the dough. They are not all Scrooge McDuck. So they're going to be impartial. They're going to look at the facts. And unlike everybody that Trump some way somehow gets to be on his legal team, these judges are not willing to throw away decades of careers for anybody. Well, mine is Clarence Thomas, but he's been getting away with it so long. I think Clarence has forgotten that he's black. But speaking of Clarence Thomas, let's go ahead and first, there was a conflict of interest that his wife, Jeannie Thomas, has brought to the table. Then we found out recently that years after the whole Anita Hill situation, she tried to contact Anita Hill and intimidate her into apologizing to Clarence, to her husband, for her husband sexually assaulting this woman with a Coca-Cola can. If you know, you know. If you don't, Google is free. But now, I told y'all way back when Roe v. Wade was overturned, that there were certain justices on the Supreme Court of the United States that had impeachable offenses, and he was at the top of the list, and people told me that I was stretching. Take a look.
In a rare case of government actually working swiftly, look at this. The Senate Judiciary Committee, led by Dick Durbin, will be investigating Clarence Thomas's allegations. It only took a couple hours, folks. And it's because you picked up the phone. But still, keep making those calls. You gotta let the senators and the representatives know that this is a huge, huge issue.
I don't like to say I told you so on this podcast. But when are y'all going to start listening to me? Now, coming from theguardian.com, Clarence Thomas must be impeached over revelations of mega donor gifts, says AOC as it happened.
The judge warned Trump not to make any statements that would incite violence, no threats or attacks. And
AOC, Clarence Thomas must be impeached. New York Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has called for the conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's impeachment. Thank God, about time. AOC's calls follow reports that Thomas failed to disclose luxury gifts that he accepted from Republican billionaire Harlan Crow, a mega donor to conservative organizations. This is beyond party or partisanship. This degree of corruption is shocking, almost cartoonish. Thomas must be impeached, she tweeted. Now here's the summary. For over 20 years, Clarence Thomas has accepted multiple luxury trips from Harlan Crow, a Republican real estate developer and mega donor, according to a new ProPublica investigation. Despite accepting these luxury trips for over 2 decades, Thomas has not listed them on his financial disclosures, according to the report. Sounds very reminiscent to what his wife wasn't reporting. On top of, we know that there were Christian nationalists wooing him and other associate justices, but that's a story for another time. Crow and his wife denied wielding any political influence over Thomas via these luxury trip offerings. Name a wealthy white person that does something for somebody in power out of the kindness of their heart. I'll wait. I'm not gonna hold my breath.
The former president's supporters in Congress are taking note. In March, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced he was ordering a probe.
Like I thought. New York Congresswoman AOC has called for conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's impeachment. AOC's calls follow reports that Thomas failed to disclose luxury gifts that he accepted from Republican billionaire Harlan Crow, a mega donor to conservative organizations.
Judiciary Committee fired off its very first subpoena in their so-called investigation into DA Bragg. Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan subpoenaed a former prosecutor.
So the wife is racking up millions of dollars for people to lobby her conservative Christian nationalist, very racist views, very problematic views. You can just give her every phobia and every ism. And now this.
This whole series of sagas for us on this channel. Andrew,
for me, this calls into question quite a few decisions of his that he was a part of.
In the mob, there is a rule. You do not go after judges. You do not go after prosecutors.
And see, somebody like Harlan Crow, you mix them with somebody like Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett already, if you remember way back when she was going through her congressional hearings in order to be appointed onto SCOTUS, I reveal to you all, she's a part of a religion, I'm using that very loosely, where she has to have an advisor that advises her over everything in her life. Why that didn't disqualify her, why they're not looking at that as an impeachable offense, I don't know. But think about Harlan Crow and somebody like that. And Clarence Thomas has more tenure than, a Kavanaugh, a Barrett. I'm not worried about Miss Katanji. We know she is unwavering. But if you all remember last night when I broke down things in the Tennessee House and the trickle-down effect of corruption that started with Quesada and people he mentored and his chief of staff, and you catch what I'm putting down? But it is time. And AOC, you're in Congress. That's y'all baby now. Rock it. Get those articles of impeachment written up. I know that there's currently an investigation going on. I know you got to wait, get all that information regarding the investigation, but go ahead and have your articles of impeachment on the ready. Know who you want on the committee. Come on, let's go. Let's get her done. Let's get her done. And let's get the Supreme Court in stride with the representation of the United States while we still got Joe in office. He's doing some dumb shit right now when it comes to the trans community. And when it comes to our indigenous brothers and sisters, and for the environment for us all with the Willow Project. So he owes us a few. He owes us a few. We need our lick back. Expeditiously. Y'all keep praising the French. The French are doing nothing that Black, brown, indigenous people of color have not done in the United States and around the world. Y'all just like the complexion for protection doing it. And they do have better protest food. I will give them that. The French and the protest food, it is top tier.
If he is going to continue doing that. That happened with Roger Stone in a federal case.
What about the House investigation? I mean, how does that complicate matters?
Now,
Bragg is now under pressure from another branch
hold
of,
on.
from the legislative branch. And that's
Let's dip into a little cop news.
But there's a part of me that when I heard that today, I was
Because
Jim Jordan.
there's a sheriff that no longer wants to publicly disclose mugshots. It's a good thing, you would think, right? Great thing. You know, he says it causes emotional distress. Well, yeah, especially when you've been falsely accused or falsely arrested. You don't really want that out in the public and people want to snicker behind your back and everything else. But if we didn't learn anything from the Tennessee cop, all roads seem to lead back to Tennessee. Anywho, from the Tennessee cop, cops don't like their own. They're not going to protect their own. What makes you think they're going to protect the rest of us? Oh, that's right. Unless you're married to one. Enjoy.
Montgomery County Sheriff John Fuson has ordered his department to stop publishing mugshots and booking logs, saying that he's heard from many citizens in Montgomery County about their concerns about posting that info online and how bad the shaming or legal disadvantages can be. Also, the harm to one's reputation and mental health. Now, that's all good. I love that. But unfortunately, the timing seems a little bit sus. See, Sarah Fuson, the daughter of the Montgomery County Sheriff, is being investigated by the TBI for suspected child abuse complaint at the Tylertown Learning Center. A child was reportedly shaken violently on video, resulting in an injury, and her termination that same day. Now, there's been articles saying that she'd be turning herself in April after a grand jury indictment is returned. Now, the sheriff has already said that he didn't do this for his daughter and that she will receive the same protections that everyone else will get, but as many of us know here in Clarksville, that doesn't seem to be the case. So I really wonder why.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he doesn't want his daughter embarrassed. He wants her to be able to obtain gainful employment before the start of the trial, because if you're gainfully employed and you go on trial, that is a tick in your favor. And he's probably working behind the scenes, probably has like a little buddy in the DA's office, because, you know, every cop seems to know somebody in the DA's office, whether it's the janitor, the clerk, the DA themselves, the ADA, a paralegal, whatever. And he's going to try to finagle something. And he can't successfully do that if everybody knows that she's out there. But see, here's the thing. There's more than one system that puts mugshots and booking records up. So quick little Google search of her name and everything pops up anyway. But, you know, just saying. Well, given the statistics for law enforcement and military, I would say it's a pretty safe allege that she learned it from him. But when I said that cops don't even protect or care about their own, oh, I wasn't joking. This story I call ACAB meets #MeToo. No, it's not a joking manner, but it's the best way to describe it. Because y'all know me, and my mind is spicy and a wonderland. So without catching the CGV, it's ACAB meets #MeToo. You'll understand in a second.
This cop shot his sergeant because he was trying to R-word him. Yeah, that was a real sentence.
Would you like to hear it?
I'd love to hear it.
For the first time, Jason Rusk is hearing the 911 call his son made in the early morning hours of January 25th.
I shot Sergeant Gibson. You what? I shot Sergeant Gibson. I pulled a gun on him. Can you investigate me?
So originally the sergeant had told the authorities that they got into a bar fight before Michael pulled out his gun and shot him 3 times. But then his lawyers pulled the surveillance footage and that's not what happened. So the sergeant actually tries to grope Michael multiple times before Michael storms out of the bar by himself. Michael gets so creeped out that he eventually leaves the bar by himself, but the sergeant tries to follow him, and this is when the altercation gets physical. So the sergeant makes one last pass at Michael before Michael screams at the top of his lungs not to follow him, and that's when shots are fired right after.
Okay, I need you to take a deep breath for me, okay? Is he breathing? Is he breathing? I'm trying to save his life!
The 911 call goes on for just over 5 minutes. That's when responding officers show up to find Gibson had been shot 3 times, seriously hurt in his stomach and shoulder. Court documents show Gibson told officers Rusk shot him after a verbal argument. But Rusk, his dad, and his lawyers say it was much more than that.
It started to get creepy.
Jason Rusk says his son told him about unwanted attention he got from his superior officer leading up to the shooting, and that he had reported it to others on the force.
There was a year's worth of grooming that had taken place.
Rusk says his son is the victim of unwanted sexual advances and had been for a long time.
Extremely inappropriate touching, stalking, the grooming, the previous to the incident, assaults.
So the blue wall of silence applies to cops hurting other cops too. I mean, like, they're not snitching on themselves even for the benefit of one of their own. They sure as hell not going out of their way for a civilian.
If our client was a female, this case would be drastically different.
Rusk's lawyer says the video and 911 call make a clear case for self-defense.
That's actually kind of a good point. I wonder if this were a female officer, if they'd be facing the same murder charges that Michael is.
Yes. Yes. If it was regular society, I would say no. A woman wouldn't face charges. But after what we watched unfold and the narrative that was put out in Tennessee, yes. Because there's different rules for cops, especially when you speak out, when you do anything to protect yourself, especially if you're not a straight white man. If you don't fit the blue bloods uniform of a cop, yeah. Yeah. We still have a lot more to go through. I told you all this is going to be a long one. We're going to take a break and run the ad. And if you follow me on TikTok and you know about the anti-racism journey, one, I do not have everything in a playlist because I don't have enough followers to put everything in a playlist, but I do have it marked and highlighted in pink because, you know, pink is your girl's color if you haven't been able to figure it out. So you can just go through and look at those videos. But since I am giving journal entry ideas, etc., if you need a journal, get one from your girl. See you in 2 and 2.
Where is that remote? Man, I can't find it anywhere. Oh, man, you almost made something else come out. What you scared for? It's just me. It's always just you. What you want now? I was trying to see, did you tell Cincinnati, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and Hartford, Connecticut that we're going to be there in April? After I found the remote that you lost, I was going to tell them. Well, what you waiting on? Hurry up and tell them so they can get their tickets. Lord have mercy. Okay, I'll tell them. Yo, Cincinnati, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and Hartford, Connecticut, the Lord Have Mercy Tour is coming to your city, okay? April 12th, 13th, and the 16th, okay? Cincinnati, you're on April 12th. It's a Wednesday night at the Liberty Funny Bone. Columbus, you're the next day, okay? On that Thursday night, April 13th, we have the Columbus Funny Bone. In Hartford, Connecticut, you are that Sunday night, April 16th at the Hartford Funny Bone. Look, don't wait to get your tickets, okay? Please, go ahead and get them now. So as soon as you see this video, go ahead and go get them, okay? Don't wait. The reviews of the show have been great. Everybody's been loving it. And you need to see, why is everybody loving these shows so much? What is it that he's doing there? Just come see and find out. I promise you it's worth every dollar, all right? So get your tickets, okay? Because I want to see you there.
I don't know if you all follow him on TikTok, but usually he duets different food recipes and goes, Lord have mercy, my stomach is bubbling. He is hilarious. So if you were in the greater Cincinnati area or in Hartford, Connecticut, make sure you go out and you see him. And don't forget, April is your girl's birthday month. So you may, if you go to the Cincinnati show, you may see me. You may. I can't put no definitives out there. Y'all be liking to dox a chick. Now, yeah, I love him too. He's so great. And he's got me wanting to try the Popeye's strawberry biscuits. Yeah, I had to give up the DeSantis tears. It's been a couple days. Now, I'm very well versed in a lot of things, but this week has really tested my research skills because some things I have not researched or had to think about since like middle school, high school, freshman year of college. And it's like, yeah, I understand the gist, but I like to give you all specifics, like the Nixon settlement and, the Presidential Records Act and all that, who knew that would be coming into question? Now, we discussed it a little bit tonight. Yeah. We discussed it a little bit last night, but I wanted to give you all just a little bit more context on what I've dubbed the North Carolina flip-flop. Yeah, we're back to politics.
Oh, it's incredibly shady, but it's most likely legal. It does appear that Representative Tricia Cotham ran as a progressive Democrat only to change her mind later and become a Republican so that she could give the Republicans a supermajority and they could override vetoes by their Democratic governor. This was a plan. And let me show you why. Full transparency, I am not from North Carolina. I don't know the geography. I don't know the area. But I do know in a quick Google search that it says that North Carolina does not have recall elections at the state level. The only thing they have is some lower local level provisions, but of all the municipalities, which there are many, only 20 allow this. And if you take a quick look over at the Wikipedia page for the 112th district, you'll see that she represents Mint Hill and it's not on that list. So this was most likely a very targeted dupe of the voters running on a progressive platform, all the while knowing that you're conservative. That's a special kind of corrupt. Good luck, North Carolina.
Now, a few months back, actually during the last election cycle, I told you all to beware and to start paying attention to all of the elections, including your most local of elections, even school boards, that they were going to start doing this. And when Kristen Sinema did it, I was like, this seems to be a plan to infiltrate any way that they can. And once again, folks telling me I was reaching, I should have stretched first. When the writing is on the wall, take a step back and read it. Y'all stressful. Y'all need to start listening to me. Y'all need to start listening to me. But now I got some more information for y'all regarding this whole Iowa v. LSU, because we know what it's really about. But, and I'm old enough to know better because I actually saw the evolution of this and I miscredited this in my blog, but I'm not. I'm gonna go back and make an edit, but I'm gonna let it stand for now because, hey, I was wrong. So I'm gonna correct myself. But it's not the John Cena. It's the Tony Yayo. Take a look.
All I know is this. If you think John Cena made that up, you clearly know nothing about our culture and about hip hop.
And just did this dance that Tony Yayo did in one of the G Unit videos. It was like he put his hand over his head and just kind of like bobbed his head like that.
Oh, yeah. Please give Tony Yayo his flowers. Love.
And you know what? I remember when Tony Yayo started doing it. So I don't know. Given that I'm a stickler, like generally a stickler for proper pronunciation, proper credit, and everything, I don't know how or why I missed it. I don't know why I started. And yes, I am a wrestling fan. I am. Big shocker, big blurred that I am. So my apologies, Tony Yayo, my sincere apologies. And like I said, after this podcast, I will be making a correction to the blog that I wrote regarding this subject in my open letter to First Lady Dr. Jill Biden and the blog "An Athlete is an Athlete." I will be making a correction. I'm just going to put it in parentheses, correction. Because like I said, and I've told you all before, I am not above being corrected, even whether I have to correct myself or you all have to correct me, not above it at all. I'm just as human as everybody else. I just got a little extra Sheldon Cooper in me, that's all. Oh, that didn't sound right. Nope, not our county. But let's get into what people really have an issue with regarding Iowa and LSU's historic first. And when I say historic, the ladies brought it down before the men. Hence the fact that Shaq is putting everybody on notice. And we're not going to let what happened to Sha'Carri Richardson happen to Angel Reese. Y'all gonna leave our Black women athletes alone. Learn how to take our savoir-faire and our talent and suck it.
I came across this tweet recently showing Iowa's women's basketball team stretching to music from High School Musical and juxtaposing this with a video of LSU's team getting hyped to Boosie's Set It Off. The tweet called this a tale of two cultures, which was definitely the case regarding the NCAA Women's Championship game, and with that came a lot of racial tension. It's no secret that LSU's team was predominantly black, while Iowa was the opposite. The personalities of both teams were very different, with the cocky bravado of Iowa's Caitlin Clark and the playful yet fierce nature of LSU's Angel Reese. I mean, this woman put on a crown during her pregame introduction. Talk about confidence. With these contrasting styles has come bigotry, double standards, and a media bias, often taking away from LSU. After their loss, supporters of Clark and Iowa have continued leaving disparaging comments under the videos of LSU players. I'd argue that part of the reason why this game recorded such historic numbers was because the match mirrored that of Jack Johnson versus James Jeffries. And for LSU, unfortunately, this was more than a game. Their win was for an often vilified culture.
We see it every day. Now everybody else is being able to see it every day. Played out in sporting events, on congressional floors, during protest, on multiple continents, in the grocery store, at the doctor's office, during police stops. Need I go on? See, it's okay for Caitlin to be cocky, but it's not okay for Angel to be playful, because Angel doesn't have to be cocky. She knows her skills. She can play around with you. Kind of reminds me of Kobe Bryant, who would play around and joke around, and Allen Iverson. And if you know about and one basketball, and if you know the talent that it takes to become a Harlem Globetrotter, You can be playful when you got the skills.
Just part of history they need to know. This is the history that American children are.
Now, I know, not too long ago, we were coming for Skip's neck. But I guess after we came together as a collective and gathered Skip, he saw the light of day. Now, I don't know how long he gonna have his window open to see the light of day. Okay? He done woke up. Everybody, we done woke him up for right now. I don't know if he gonna go back to sleep and be in this coma, but I knew y'all wasn't gonna believe me, and I need you to hear what he had to say, because this kind of pains me a little bit, because I don't normally agree with I don't never agree with Skip. Skip makes me want to give him all the skippity paps. But this is how white people, this is how you call in one of your own.
Jill Biden obviously meant well, and that's the problem. Yes. To me, in my point of view, from this side of the table, this was a classic example of naive white racism. Unintentional, unwitting racism. Right. Oh, I didn't mean that. You just don't get it. You're not seeing the forest for the trees. You're lost because you've never really gotten it. And LSU deserved to win the game. They won it going away. Yes. Caitlin Clark spoke yesterday on SportsCenter and just went on and on about how she had absolutely no problem with what Angel Reese did, and she thought it was very unfair that she'd receive any flack over it. Right. She took the highest of high roads because it's from her heart, and she said we all compete, and we expected there was going to be some trash talk because that's what we love about playing basketball. Right. The women's game is arriving right there with the men's game. If these were guys going back and forth, nobody would think much about it, right? It happens if it's an NBA game and they're going back and forth and it's Patrick Beverly and Russell Westbrook, who cares? Or do a white player. Got it. So she didn't exactly walk it back as in, oh, I apologize for what I said. She just amended her previous statement and omitted, I want Iowa to come. She said, I look forward to LSU coming to the White House. Or her press secretary said that. Okay, we get it. That's fine. That's what our president said also. She just stuck foot in mouth. And it comes across, even though she didn't mean to, like, oh, poor Caitlin Clark. She got shamed. She got taunted by that Angel Reese. I feel so sorry for Caitlin. Let's bring her to the White House, too. Stop it. Right. No, she didn't feel shamed at all. She was fine with it. Now,
once again, Caitlin Clark got a whole segment on ESPN talking about her clapbacks. She was doing this. I ain't got to guard you. All this other stuff. Cool. 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 If you have not read my open letter to Dr. Jill Biden, the blog is called Camp Taz. Link is in the bio. And as always, check out the links in the description of this video. Please, 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 if you learned anything from any of the episodes this week specifically, please share them. Please share this one. Thank you. Appreciate it. And for those that keep messaging me, like I said, about me not putting things in a playlist on TikTok for the anti-racism journey, help your girl out. I can't get playlists till I get to 10,000. And like Tiana would say, I'm almost there. Yes, a broken clock can be right twice a day. And like I said, it pains me and I don't know how long it's going to last, but there we are. Now, before we get into the multitude of things regarding the Trump legal team, the Trump family legal woes, and crying ass Lindsey Graham, It breaks my heart to tell you all that the Idaho abortion trafficking bill, which would basically give you RICO charges, has passed.
They did it. I told you they'd do it. I told you so. Idaho just signed the abortion trafficking bill into law tonight. The law restricts interstate travel for abortions. And right now they're saying it's just for minors. But this is RICO charges. So if your son rapes your daughter or your uncle rapes your daughter, and your daughter knows that she can't tell you because you'll just cover it up, like they did in Missouri, and the family forced the 11-year-old girl who got pregnant by her brother to have the baby at the home, so she goes to her auntie or her friend to help her get an abortion pill anywhere in the state or outside of the state, because this is interstate too. We're talking about if your auntie picks you up to go to the store to get an abortion pill, it's a felony. The same day that Kansas passes a bill where people can inspect your child's genitals to play sports. I told you all through COVID, this was going to happen. I told you this was coming down the pike. Some of you anti-vaxxers who are pro-choice, you did this. You did this.
I have lost count on how many states are having protests outside of a Planned Parenthood. Because let's just say, stop saying abortion clinics like that's the only place that they're going, and that's the only service that Planned Parenthood provides, because there are Planned Parenthoods that don't even provide abortions, where young girls and women that are low income are needing to have regular gynecological exams, are needing birth control, are needing so many things, and are afraid to go because they don't want to be accosted. But they're passing laws that don't protect the children that they're trying to force to be born. I've lost count. Now, just to let you know, tomorrow is Freeform Friday. I do know about the racist transphobe. I dealt with her a little bit on my TikTok page. I will be breaking her down tomorrow. I do have some coronation news for you all tomorrow and some unexpected royal news, because I told you I'm going to give y'all snippets of not so well known or possibly unknown news leading up to King Chucky's coronation. At this point, I think it's more like Queen Concubine's coronation, because I think she done forgot all about King Chucky. So that'll be tomorrow, as well as like a little nugget that I don't think will surprise very many people regarding the late and busted prostate Kevin Samuels. But before we get into the last segment, you all remember Robert Kennedy, you know, JFK's brother man. Well, his son's an idiot. But, you know, familial traditions. I hate to say this, but I hope he has the same fate as his nephew, even though his nephew was a very viable candidate, and I cannot believe that he lost. But anywho, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running for president in 2024. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., nephew of President John F. Kennedy and son of former U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, is running for president as a Democrat. Yeah, you're going to go up against Biden. But hold on, there's more. According to a statement of candidacy filed with the Federal Election Commission on Wednesday, Kennedy, an outspoken anti-vaccine activist and the chair of the anti-vaccine nonprofit group Children's Health Defense, what isn't that the definition of an oxymoron, is the second Democrat to officially enter the 2024 race. Self-help author Marianne Williamson launched her second White House bid in March. Girl, we didn't know who you were the first time. We didn't know that you launched a bid this time. Give it up. I know everybody got dreams, but you are not a dream girl, okay? This seems to be a nightmare for you. Just, why waste money? I mean, if you that good at fundraising, go help a school somewhere. Both Kennedy's and Williams's bids are seen as long shots in a Democratic primary that will likely pit them against President Joe Biden. It is a long shot. The Kennedy name ain't going. We remember Chappaquiddick, bitch. And we're still reeling off of Marilyn Monroe. We don't like y'all like that. Though Biden has yet to officially enter the race, he has repeatedly said he plans to run for re-election. Kennedy, a former environmental lawyer, keep trying to protect the environment, but not keep. So you want us to put these infected kids and grown-ass adults in the ground, and well, we know where ground zero for the zombie apocalypse is going to start. Has long led the charge in the anti-vaccine movement, spreading conspiracy theories about the dangers they pose to children. Well, you got that from your grandparents, because I remember what they did to your auntie. Them lobotomies, Lord. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he was among those who attacked vaccine requirements, accusing Anthony Fauci, the leading infectious disease doctor, of orchestrating fascism during the pandemic. Jesus, you are a Kennedy. You, of all people, should know the definition of fascism. Fascism, mistress affairs, familial curses. Let me stop. Let me stop. Oh, thank you. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, let me move on from the Kennedys, because they always got somebody watching something, and I know I had one issue at the beginning of the year, like in February 2nd to be exact, but I'm good now, okay? And I don't repeat tactics, okay? And if something were to happen to me and then my body goes missing, y'all, don't forgive nobody, and don't let me become a cold case after I'm a cold body. All right. Now let's start with the Trump shenanigans, and this is going to involve pretty much all of them. Well, minus Tiffany and Barron, because we don't nobody like neither one of them. But when you the youngest of the bunch, and you wasn't supposed to be born, because they all their life was trying to just split their daddy's grifted money 3 ways, and now they may have to split it a whole nother way if this love child turns out to be. Anywho, let's start with Eric and his shenanigans. Roll the clip.
Poor Eric Trump just wants to get some headache medicine, but for the love of God, in the city of New York, he just can't seem to make it happen. On Thursday, the day that the indictments against his father were announced, Eric Trump went on Fox News to talk about how difficult it is for him to buy headache medicine at CVS. So here's Eric Trump talking about Advil at CVS, and pay close attention to everything he says. Here it is.
Us every single day. And this is a city, I spent a lot of time in New York, that is falling apart. I went into literally CVS the other day, and you can't buy Tylenol because it's locked behind these glass counters, because there's so much theft and there's so much looting, there's so much homelessness and crime, but yet their attention is going after Donald Trump. Little girl.
So it's interesting. As I said, you got to pay attention to every word the guy says, because he said, yesterday I was at CVS and I couldn't buy Advil. Interesting story. But then the very next day, on Friday, March 31st, Eric Trump went on Newsmax, where he talked about how the other day he went into a different pharmacy to buy a different headache medicine and was met with the same results. So here is Eric Trump on Newsmax mixing up the story that he had told just 24 hours prior. Here he is.
In New York City, homelessness is through the roof. I went into Duane Reade the other day, and literally you can't buy Advil in Duane Reade without having somebody come up with a key and unlock, those little plastic things that you pick up, because there's so much looting in the city. I mean, the city is going to hell.
So he couldn't buy the Tylenol at CVS, he couldn't get the Advil at Duane Reade, all because it's all under lock and key. And I gotta tell you, there isn't a single part of me that believes that Eric Trump was just marching himself down the streets of Manhattan, going from drugstore to drugstore trying to find headache medicine. He clearly got his story all mixed up and turned around. Maybe his advisors said, hey, CVS doesn't play well, switch it to Duane Reade. Oh, people don't like Tylenol, switch it to Advil. The kid is lying about that even happening. I think we could all agree on that part. Your story wouldn't change that much in 24 hours if you were telling the truth. Now, I'm not saying that in New York City you don't see, Advil, Tylenol, those kinds of things behind lock and key. By the way, that's not uncommon. That's actually a thing that's happened all across the country in many areas for many decades now. I mean, hell, Eric, if you think that's bad trying to get a bottle of Tylenol, have you ever tried to get a razor blade? Yeah, you got to get like the store manager to come in and unlock those things, and it's been that way since the year 2000. No matter where you are in the country. But the bigger point, of course, is that Eric Trump is trying to exonerate his father by implying that people shoplifting Advil and Tylenol is somehow worse than what his dad did, right? He wants the Manhattan District Attorney to be going after petty theft of under $10 instead of going after his dad for potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraud, depending on what the indictments.
And once again, let me direct you to last night's show where I talked, well, not last night's show, to my blog. The link is actually in the description of this video. Because we had another president. He avoided indictment and conviction because he died. He was involved in a bribery scandal. But Eric, coast to coast, there's certain medications that you do have to have somebody come and unlock, or they have like little tickets that you have to pick up and take to the front, and then they'll go get it for you because of meth. Your daddy and your brother, allegedly, are addicts. You should know this. And before people go, but meth is a poor people drug. So you think. Just like y'all thought only poor people did crack. You learned that it wasn't that whack in their circles. Yeah. Because way back when, my second job ever, I've told people this, I was the only girl working in games, like electronic games. We're talking Super Nintendo, etc., Sega. And there were games we did not have on the floor. You had to pick up a ticket and go back. And I was in a very high-end neighborhood, a very wealthy neighborhood. That should let you know who steals the most. I mean, it was rich white people that like to steal whole countries, but I digress. But let's get caught up in Trump legal news. Hi. Thank goodness for fermented grape juice. Let's go.
Judge, we are being told, has ruled that former President Donald Trump and his two eldest children, Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr., must answer questions now under oath.
6 months after leaving the White House, Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, secured a $2 billion investment from a fund led by the Saudi Crown Prince, a close ally during the Trump administration.
So, friends, defendant Donald Trump says he had a right to obstruct justice, and he reveals his motive for doing so. No, you can't make this stuff up. Let's talk about it, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So, defendant Donald Trump, fresh off his arraignment in New York, on 34 felony charges, turns his attention to admitting to other crimes, specifically obstructing justice in the classified documents probe. Here is the headline in The Hill. Trump shakes off classified documents probe, dodges question on whether he denied authorities access to documents. And the article in The Hill begins, former President Trump, in a new interview with Fox Entertainment host Sean Hannity, shook off the investigation into his handling of classified documents and dodged a question about whether he denied authorities access to the materials they sought. The FBI executed a search warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida last summer and uncovered many materials marked classified that, under the Presidential Records Act, should have been turned over to the National Archives for preservation. Okay, friends, so here is the conversation between Fox Entertainment host Sean Hannity and defendant Donald Trump. I'm actually going to read the exchange rather than inflict their voices on you. Sean Hannity, I can't imagine you ever saying, "Bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them." Did you ever do that? Donald Trump, I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it. Hannity, but I know you. I don't think you would do it. Trump, but I would have the right to do that. I would do that. Hannity, all right, let me move on. Trump, remember this. This is the Presidential Records Act. I have a right to take stuff. Do you know they ended up paying Richard Nixon, I think, $18 million for what he had? I have the right to take stuff. I have the right to look at stuff. And friends, there you have it. After virtually admitting to obstructing justice because he says, I have a right to take that stuff, no, he doesn't. They didn't belong to him. The records were supposed to go from the White House to the National Archives. He didn't have a right to take that stuff. He stole that stuff. But after virtually admitting that he obstructed justice, he goes on to reveal that the motive for the crime was money. He decided to hold classified documents hostage because he was looking for a payday, just like Richard Nixon got $18 million for those documents. He obstructed justice for financial gain. It's as simple as that. He's as simple as that. So friends, all that's left now is for a federal indictment. Come on, Jack. Let's roll. Because justice matters.
Felony charges against former President Trump should be thrown out because of a 5-year statute of limitations. But is that true, and can those limits be extended? Let me explain using these sources. Statutes of limitation dictate how long a prosecutor has to bring criminal charges in a case. Those time limits vary by state and the severity of the crime. In New York, the statute of limitations for most felonies is 5 years. Attorney Rebecca Puris says the clock starts when the crime occurs. So how does this apply to Trump? In a Manhattan courtroom on April 4th, former President Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. The statute of limitations for this type of felony is 5 years. The charges stem from alleged crimes that happened in 2017, which is more than 5 years ago. If Trump's alleged crimes started in 2017, then the clock should have run out in 2022. But under New York law, there are some exceptions that pause the clock and extend the statute of limitations. For example, if the defendant is not continuously present in the state, which legal experts say prosecutors could argue applies to Trump when he was in the White House from 2017 to 2021. The governor can also issue an executive order to pause the statute of limitations, which then Governor Andrew Cuomo did during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, I know I had explained to you all the statute of limitations and the exact one that this applies to, 30.10, but I also wanted to show that last video because I did not know that what then Governor Cuomo had done. But yeah, there is another court case on his docket. And as much as Ivanka keeps trying to distance herself from the family, sweetheart, as we learned last night, your signature and your signature alone is on quite a few things. You can't really distance yourself now, especially after all the money that you and your husband racked up and those Chinese contracts that you got while working for the White House. Emoluments clause, sweetie, emoluments clause. But it looks like Trump is getting some campaign assistance, which it looks like he needs, because It's being heavily speculated that he's lying about the amount of money he's been raising since indictment news started fluttering around. And remember that indictment news started with him. So, yeah. Let's take a look.
Anonymous donors are financing a $70 million scheme that could make Donald Trump the next president. The $70 million was raised by No Labels to fund ballot access for a centrist third-party ticket the group claims could win an outright victory in the Electoral College in 2024. But the strategy outlined by No Labels is far more likely to help Trump. The No Labels strategy appears focused on siphoning off votes from the Democratic candidate. According to a projected map circulated by No Labels, it seeks to capture 2/3 of its Electoral College votes from states that supported Biden in 2020. No Labels' own poll shows Democrats, liberals, and urban voters to be more open to a moderate independent candidate than Republicans, conservatives, or rural voters. The poll found if an unnamed moderate independent candidate was on the ballot, Trump would win a plurality. If no candidate secures an outright majority in the Electoral College, the House of Representatives selects the president, with each state delegation getting one vote. Republicans currently represent the majority in 26 states, virtually assuring that Trump wins in that scenario. Giving a distinct advantage to Trump in 2024 might actually be the point. In January 2016, No Labels honored Trump for agreeing to its problem solver promise at an elaborate event in New Hampshire. Last year, No Labels criticized the January 6th committee as a partisan exercise about which the public is skeptical. No Labels publicly opposed Biden's Build Back Better legislation. Its presentation about the 2024 presidential election equates Biden and Trump, characterizing both as an unacceptable choice. No Labels refuses to release any information about its donors, but leaked internal documents obtained in 2018 by the Daily Beast shows much of No Labels' money comes from corporate executives, particularly in the financial industry. This is Popular Information, a newsletter that holds the powerful accountable. Now follow along here and subscribe for more accountability journalism.
See, when they lost Kanye, because he went too far off the rails, and then some way, somehow, him watching 21 Jump Street with Jonah Hill brought him back from his anti-Semitism, I guess. They didn't have that big distraction that they had in 2016. And remember, there was also a Green Party candidate. So they know Trump doesn't have the popular vote. He's never had the popular vote. The only thing they can do is split the polls. But if you think I'm joking about Trump stealing the 2016 election with help, and this is why so many people are so loyal to him, even after he's dogged them out, thrown them under the bus, minus Michael Cohen. Because I saw Scarsborough last night, and he was still trying to portray Trump as a family man, that his children just love to hang out with him. But if you need proof that he stole the election, here you go. Here you go. You hungry?
You want to talk about stolen election? Donald Trump stole that election in 2016. August 2015, that agreement, Pecker, Cohen, and Trump. Catch and kill. No negative information. Why? Because I'm running for president of the United States. This is Donald Trump. Doorman gets paid off $30,000, October 2015. June 2016, Karen McDougal gets $150. Everybody's quiet. Still haven't heard anything. September 2016, the audio tape is done between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. Trump's telling Cohen, pay cash. What do you mean this whole setup, this arrangement with Weisselberg and stuff? Just pay the cash, right? October 7th, 2016, the Access Hollywood tape comes out. Everything blows up. We're on the eve of the election. There's drama. The evangelicals may be getting a little bit nervous. So on October 27th, 2016, Stormy Daniels gets her $130. It was all for the purpose of being able to win and influence the outcome of this election.
He's the quintessential thou that protests too much. See, projection is the name of the game. If I can keep you looking over there, I can continue to do what I'm telling you that they're doing. Sound familiar? Look familiar? Feel familiar? Now, Trump has an attorney that loves to, get out there and act like he's John Gotti. But he does have a conflict of interest that quite a few people are concerned about because he used to have a client by the name of Stormy Daniels. Yes, that's Stormy Daniels. So, regarding the exact same case that he's now representing, well, helping to represent Trump in, because remember, I told y'all the other day that there were 2 attorneys added within the last 48 hours before his arraignment. Here's why.
I need you to pay close attention. This is Trump's lawyer now. He's the one defending Trump in the case that he was just indicted for, the 34 counts. But I need you to listen to what he said in 2018 about the same case.
Is out once the microscope is on you, everything is fair game. And it's hard to argue, oh, you can't look at this or you can't look at that. So yes, if there's an issue with that payment to Stormy Daniels being that it was made on behalf of the candidate, okay, and it was not declared, that's fair game, unfortunately, if that's the case. And, quite frankly, Michael Cohen, again, has made statements that would give rise to suspicion for any prosecutor to say, that doesn't make sense that a lawyer took out a home equity loan with his own money, paid somebody that he didn't even know on behalf of a client who, by the way, had the wherewithal and the money to afford $130,000. Yeah. And by the way, didn't tell the client about the settlement agreement. It's an illegal agreement. It's a fraud. Can't pay with that's in fact pay a client settlement with your own money. You can't make a settlement to bind your client without him knowing about it. Mm-hmm. So how could he say that? Now, if that's true, he's got some problems, and the agreement's a fraud and null and void. If it's not true, where did the money come from? If it leads back to the Trump campaign funding, that's a big problem. Mm-hmm. This is a Pandora's box that's going to be opened and unfortunately is not going to have any good results for the president.
Far cry from what he's been saying recently for Trump, right? But he knows facts on both sides of the case. But riddle me this, why does he remind me of Tony Soprano? Now, before we move on to Graham Tears, coming from AOL.com, just want to remember I told y'all last night, like I said, if you have not watched this week's shows, you're going to have to go back and watch them, baby, because there's a whole lot of information that was given. Remember, Trump was warned about his threatening and harmful rhetoric that he was putting on social media. I don't know why I keep saying social media, because he can only post on Truth Social. He has to post on Truth Social first, and he cannot post anything else differently because of the contract he has with Truth Social on any other network. So everybody else has to go on different social media networks and kind of like be his mouthpiece there. But I also wonder, did he ever pay those people for this? Anyway, Trump judge and his family received threats after New York arrest. In the 24 hours since former President Donald Trump's arraignment, the presiding judge and his family have received multiple threats, 2 sources familiar with the matter said. One official said dozens of threats have recently been directed at Judge Juan Merchan and his chambers, but did not give an exact time frame for them. The other source said Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg and other top officials in his office continue to receive threats. The threats have been in the form of calls, emails, and letters. Now, for those of y'all that are like, well, Trump's already in legal trouble, why would he do this? Because he's trying to force a gag order. Because imagine what a gag order would do to him, his sycophants, and his base. Now, I already said that he's calling for all these protests and for mayhem the people who are going to do that are on probation, parole, or locked up. They can't do that. The ones that are left are just kooky and riddled with conspiracy theories. They not nuck if you buck. And the ones that were left that used to be nuck if you buck, they're just happy they didn't get caught. And they're slowly beginning to think, I'll send you some money. I'll come to your rallies. And a lot of his base are older boomers. Elder boomers. Yes. Just like there are elder millennials, there's elder boomers. And the few sprinkling of the silent generation that are still left. He wants a gag order so he can be like, I wish I could talk to you about this. They're trying to silence me. It's the radical woke left. Why do you think he's coming out right now wanting to, after saying that defunding the police is stupid, blah, 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 and call this person, get it? Now he wants to defund the DOJ because they don't understand what defund means, and the FBI. And he's now further splitting the GOP, specifically the House GOP. Because crying ass Lindsey Graham had to come out and be like, well, I don't agree with defunding the police. Trump shouldn't have said that. Oh, you can speak up against him for that? But that's right. Like I said the other night, Lady Graham is afraid because those dozens of indictments that are seem to be definitively, allegedly, on their way from Georgia, one of them's got your name on it, Lindsey. And if you think Trump is going to protect you, he's not. He's not. He's not. But let's get into those Lindsey Graham tears. Baby, hold your wine better.
Lindsey Graham goes on TV after dinner, and presumably whatever he drinks and has with dinner, there's a very good chance he's going to cry.
You need to help this man, Donald J. Trump. They're trying to drain him dry. He spent more money on lawyers than most people spend on campaigns. They're trying to bleed him dry. I'm sorry I'm so upset, but please help President Trump. If you can afford $5 or $10, if you can't afford $1, fine, just pray.
Lindsey Graham is crying and begging for money for a man who said this when he began running for president against Lindsey Graham and other Republicans.
I don't need anybody's money. I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care.
That was a foundational lie of the Trump political career. Trump claimed to be so rich that he would never need any contributions at all, and therefore he would be incorruptible. And now Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in history, and he has taken more money out of the pockets of his supporters than any other president in history, after first telling his supporters he didn't need their money. That's the person Lindsey Graham is crying for now. Lindsey Graham has never cried for a single child who has been murdered in a classroom in America. Not one. Lindsey Graham did not go on TV to cry for 9-year-old Evelyn Dykhouse, 9-year-old William Kinney, 9-year-old Allie Scruggs, who were murdered in a Nashville elementary school last week by a mass murderer who also killed Catherine Kuntz, the head of the school, Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher, and Mike Hill, the school's custodian. Lindsey Graham did not shed a single tear for any one of those victims of America's latest mass murderer who used an AR-15 to fire 152 bullets in that school. After that mass murder, Lindsey Graham proudly told reporters in Washington that he owns an AR-15. He didn't say why. He didn't cry while casually talking to Washington reporters in the Senate hallway about America's latest mass murder, and he won't cry the next time. If your child's body is ripped apart by an AR-15 in your child's classroom, Lindsey Graham will not cry for your child, and he will not cry for you. He cried for one of Donald Trump's nominees to the United States Supreme Court when that nominee had an uncomfortable day in a Senate confirmation hearing. Lindsey Graham cried for him. Lindsey Graham got hysterical for him. And when that Supreme Court justice, for the first time in the history of the Supreme Court, voted to revoke a constitutional right from the women of this country and forced a 10-year-old pregnant girl to leave her state of Ohio to obtain urgently needed abortion services, Lindsey Graham did not cry. Lindsey Graham didn't cry about the rape of that 10-year-old girl, and he did not cry about what was forced upon her after the rape by the Supreme Court that Lindsey Graham voted into place. Professional Republicans absolutely do not cry for dead American children when they are murdered by AR-15s. The Washington Post has been reporting extensively on the unique damage to the human body done by AR-15s, which produce exit wounds much larger than the entrance wound of the bullet, because the bullet is designed to pass through the body in a way that expands the size of the wound and the damage as the bullet passes through the body. An emergency room doctor in Uvalde, Texas, described how unrecognizable some of the dead children were there because of what an AR-15 did to them. Some of the children had to be identified only by their clothing. Children in classrooms in America have literally had their heads blown off by AR-15s. So yes, the AR-15 does make a difference. Banning the sale of AR-15s would make a difference. Some children might have survived some of the gunshot wounds they suffered in schools around the country if the shooter had a less powerful gun. 152 bullets were fired from that AR-15 in that Nashville school last week. 152. A weapon not designed for war and for mass murder, as the AR-15 was, might only have allowed that shooter to get off a few dozen shots, maybe half as many shots. We don't know. We do know that 400 Texas police officers were afraid to enter a classroom where children were dying for 77 minutes because they were afraid of the AR-15 inside that classroom. What Republican State Representative William Lamberth and Lindsey Graham have in common with every other elected Republican in Washington is the absolute determination to make sure that every mass murderer who walks into an American school will be able to legally purchase an AR-15 to bring into that school with them. Elected Republicans are dedicated to making sure that America's mass murderers are the very best equipped mass murderers in the world.
That is how we can, and that is the way we must operate. The responsibility to hold together this democracy does not just fall on the hands of the people who are being persecuted.
He's absolutely right. Of course he is.
The people who are in positions of power.
You have politicians that are going to cry for a self-proclaimed billionaire. I want to take you back in time. In 2016, when Trump began his campaign, he kept saying that he wasn't using donors, he wasn't using campaign funds, he was using his own money to run for president. And then shortly after that, he convinced his sycophants that he was a billionaire, but to also send him money. Why are you crying for people to send money to a billionaire, but you can't cry for the loss of life, but you're supposed to be pro-life? But Lindsey Graham is the same man that would rather continue to be in his boomer hiding hole regarding his true lifestyle and his happiness. And since he's miserable, we know what we know about misery. We know what we know about misery.
My dear friend Joy Reid, host of the Readout on MSNBC. And Joy, I know a lot of this was happening during your 7 p.m.
As always, thank you for joining me here in Conversations with Taz, especially this Think About It Thursday. And thank you for everybody who stuck with me through this lengthy one. I doubled the time. My apologies. But like I said, you deserve to know the breakdown on everything that's going on, and mainstream media isn't covering everything. So as I find out about things and I go down the rabbit hole, I bring it to you. Like I said, tomorrow I'm gonna try to lighten things up as much as I possibly can for you. But if anything is breaking or any additional information comes out, of course, I'm gonna bring it to you and try to mix in our regular, schmegular freeform Friday. And hopefully, with upcoming elections, we can get back to our Friday night party time. Keep in mind that on Fridays, we do start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, make sure you check out the links in the description of the video. And because it is April, I do have to remind you, 424 Taurus season. But be good to one another. Get out, vote, let your voices be heard. And whether it's the federal level, the state level, the city level, the county level, the village level, let your voices be heard. Let them know what you want, what you desire, and what you require. No different than a relationship, because this is a relationship you're paying for. Everybody wants to complain about child support. The biggest child support we pay are to these politicians. So get your money's worth. Y'all want to talk about no free rides? Take it away from them. Now we're going to end on a truth note. I usually try to find a high note, but tonight we're going to end on a truth note, because we're going to stop blaming immigrants, specifically coming through the southern border, on our drug crisis. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. I'll see y'all actually over on TikTok in a little bit.